Hi there. We've just added a Gantt view to Omniscope. I'm going to talk a little bit about it here. The Gantt view can show activities over time. It's suitable for any dataset with a start time and an end time field, or just a time field. I'm going to start by configuring a Gantt view from scratch, and I'm going to use a typical use case for a Gantt view, which would be to visualize a project schedule. So here we're looking at some project data. We've got, and this is for development of an app. So we've got a task, a start date and an end date, and that all leads up to the launch of that app. And you can see some additional fields with some more metadata on the right here. So I'm going to click the Add View menu. I'm going to find the Gantt view. And when we add that, you can see it's immediately picked up some of those fields and it's visualizing that data for me. So you can see on the y-axis, we've got the task, and on the x-axis, we've got a timeline. And each of these bars represents an event. So if I hover over one of these bars, you can see this is a market research event, and the start date was the 1st of January 23, and the end date was the 16th of February 2023. So the size of these bars represent the duration of the event, so bigger bars, a longer duration. The first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to organize these tasks into the correct order. So if I open up my field settings, and then I choose my task field, what I can do is I can drag these one by one into the correct order. So for example, I know that market research is the first task, so I'm going to bring that to the top. And likewise, I can do the same with the rest of the tasks. Instead, I can click on the task menu and choose a sort measure. So I'm going to sort these by the task ID, which will, and in ascending order, which will order them in the correct order. In the event menu, I've got a number of ways that I can configure how the event looks and behaves. So I can firstly specify a progress field. Now I've got some progress data in here. So if I choose the progress field, you can see each event is given a partial fill. And if I hover over that event, I can see this progress was 50% and this progress was 20%. I can also configure how the event looks. So I can give it an outline radius and a border, and I can specify a border color. I can choose the color of the event. So I can make this data driven, and I'm going to color it by task. I can also choose opacity measures, change the size of the events, and add labels. So because I'm showing the progress, I might want to also show the progress value as a label, like so. So here you can see how the Gantt view is visualizing this project data. Now, if I click on the time menu, you can see we've got an option to aggregate events. If I click this, then instead of each task showing all the events, you get a summary task showing the start date of the first event and the end date of the last event. So I just toggle between those. And if you have a look at the fixes and testing tasks, you can see how those are combined together into a single task. When you aggregate that data, you've got an option to choose a custom grouping to split that data down. So here I might want to split by subtask. And now you can see the testing has initial tests, test fixes, detailed tests, and final tests. So I'm just going to look at some more use cases for the Gantt view. We got some log data here. This is from an Omniscope scheduler log. Now, one of the things I might want to do is I might want to color each of the events by the outcome. And you can see here that we have successful and failed events colored differently. Here I've got an Uber driver's data set. So here we're looking at all of the journeys that an Uber driver did over a period of a year. Now what I can do is I can now add a filters view, and I can use that to drill the data down. So for example, having a look at February the 19th. And here you can see there was a pickup at 9:21 and that pickup finished at 9:51. Here we have some COVID event data. And we're colouring by the number of deaths, excess deaths per 100,000 people. One of the things you can do here, so you can see this scrolling, the task field I'm using here is country, and it's allowing me to scroll the data. So we've got a lot of countries here, and when you've got a lot of tasks, you can scroll those tasks. One of the things we can do in the task menu is we can provide a custom sort measure as described before. So this time I'm going to sort by COVID deaths per 100k in descending order, and I'm going to change the maximum tasks to be 10. And I'm going to hide a warning that's shown when we're truncating that data. And what we can now visualize is the top 10 worst countries for COVID deaths per 100,000 people. So Peru, Bulgaria, Hungary, Croatia, Czech Republic in the top 4 according to this data. The next data set that we use in the Gantt chart to visualize is Pride events in the USA. So here you can see the city, and each of these events represent a Pride event. So let's look at the data in the last year. You can see some of the longer and smaller Pride events. So for example, this Pride event in Fort Lauderdale, Atlantis Gay Cruise on Harmony, started on the 4th of February 2023 and ended on the 12th of February 2023. The final data set I'm going to look at is unicorn companies data. So this data set is slightly different from the others. I've chosen the same start and end field because this data only has a single date field, date joined. If I increase the valuation filters, so we filter out some of the data, we're never going to have big bars on here because it's just single points in time. But one of the things you can do in the event options is change the minimum width of the events. So if I set this to something higher, like 5 pixels, you can see these become more prominent. I've also coloring by the valuation. So you can see the more orange the event, that's the higher valuation. So let's have a look at this one, and you can see this is SpaceX with a valuation of 137 billion. And this one is ByteDance with a valuation of 225 billion. So hopefully I've given you some good examples of how you can use the Gantt view to visualize your data in your Omniscope reports. Happy to take any feedback, any questions, give me a shout. Thank you.